It all started with neighbors, housed and unhoused, gathering around a bucket fire, sharing stories, sharing life, sharing warmth. We are a group of people who envision communities that are safe, supportive, and full of opportunity. Welcome to the Bucket Fire Podcast by Cultivate Initiatives.
Greetings, neighbors, friends. Welcome to the Bucket Fire Podcast. Today we have Greg Dufault. Welcome, Greg.
Oh, well, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Greg, you are most of all a personal friend, but also a friend of Cultivate Initiatives, and you are on our board.
I am.
Tell me about who you are, where you come from,
Wow.
what's Greg, who's Greg?
Well, maybe it's best to start with how I met you.
I think that's a great
Then I
call.
can go back from there.
Perfect.
Right. So it was October of 23, and my friend called me and asked me to arrange a dinner for 5, including me, because he had a friend coming out from Montana and he wanted me to meet everybody. And I said, well, I'd be happy to do that with no expectations whatsoever. And so I made arrangements for dinner for 5 at 3 doors down. By the way, it's now reopened. And
Best banana cream pie I've ever had.
ever. And so I ended up sitting next to you. And naturally, the conversation is eventually going to get around to what do you do for your living? What do you do with yourself? And you told me you run an unhoused community out in Southeast Portland. And I was intrigued because I too was unhoused when I was 24 and 25 years old. That was many years ago. And so I was rather intrigued by that. But I had no expectation of having any sort of follow-up or anything like that. And it was a pleasant dinner, and the banana cream pie was fantastic, and that was it. And I went on my merry way, and not thinking too much about our dinner and what we had experienced that night. And then I got a call from my friend in Montana, and he said that you called him and wanted to talk to me. And meanwhile, I was in the midst of selling my business, and I was almost 100% of my time was being occupied. And you called me, and we talked on the phone, and you said you wanted to meet me again. And I thought, well, that's okay, but I don't have the time. Not until January 1st of 2024. So I didn't think much more about it up to that time. And then you called me in December and reminded me that I had made a promise to come out and meet you. And I put it on my first date of my retirement, going out to Cultivate Initiatives to meet Caleb. And then I got here and I parked in the parking lot, and I didn't know what to expect. And some of the people that I met initially, right off the bat, I noticed that they looked pretty rough around the edges, but they looked me straight in the eye. And they introduced themselves to me like, wait a minute, there's something about this. And then you and I went around and we got a tour. I got a tour of the Safe Rest Village, Menlo Park, and I met Jessica, and I met all the people that were working around there. And we came back and met Beard, and I met Bobby. And they had this common trait, and that is that they had come from hell, and now there was life inside them, and there was light on in their eyes. And I was just blown away. I said, wait a minute, there's something about this is a story that needs to be told, because whatever they're doing here, they're doing it right. And so I left here and I had tears in my eyes. I was thinking that this was going to be just a polite little visit, and it had an impact on me like I've not experienced before. And I said, I've got to do something about this, because I had never heard of Cultivate Initiatives. And I've been around the town since April Fool's Day, 1981.
That's a day or two.
That's a day or two ago. So I talked to a couple of my friends who are in the media. One's an actor, one's connected with the media in some way. And I said, hey, I need you to connect me with like some of the local TV channels because I've never even heard of this place before, and this is a story that needs to be told. Meanwhile, that part of that story is that when I questioned you and I said, how the hell did you start this? And you said it was essentially 3 guys standing around a bucket fire that came up with this novel idea, why don't we help each other?
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's the magic sauce right there. The help that's being provided here is from people who've been there and done that. They have the experience, they know what it's like, and they know what it's like on the other, now they know what it's like on the other side.
Which you yourself
Yeah.
know and have experience, and I think that's...
Although long ago, I do remember quite vividly what it was like, and it's all about survival. You know, can I survive the next day? I made some choices around that changed my life.
And what were those choices? Because I mean, we've talked about this a little bit of, you know, I think for both me and for you, it was a relationship.
Yeah.
That changed the trajectory of perhaps our lives, and it was community.
It was community. I found a community of people who had suffered the way I had suffered, and on a kind of a different level, different context, but nonetheless, it had the same principle. And I needed to not drink again and not use drugs or anything like that, and that was 46 years ago.
Was there a moment or someone for you that like you can point back to that was that pivotal moment?
Yeah, there was a man. I later learned he turned out to be a gay man, which in 1978 was not acceptable in our country. He put his arm around me. If you stick with me, everything will be all right. I remember those words like it was yesterday. And so he nursed me back to health, basically. And he became a good friend of mine. And he later died of AIDS, unfortunately. And but that moment in time when he put his arm around me, he said, if you stick with me, everything will be all right. That's the most hopeful words I'd ever heard in my life up to that point. And so I've honored that and honored him for the rest of my life. Yeah. So getting back to the media thing, I had talked to my friends who were, I'm connected with Channel 12, I'm connected with Channel 8, I'm connected. I said, great, connect me.
Yeah.
Right? And it never happened. They just never did it. Well, meanwhile, there's a group in Portland called the Royal Rosarians. And for the past previous 17 years, I had purchased a table there for their newsmakers event. And it's kind of a hokey little thing, but they give out, the media gives out awards to the people who have made news that year that they thought was worthy to be projected. And it came to the day of, mind you, meanwhile, of course, nobody's ever responded to me about the media, no one.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh man, I'm just barking up a tree and nobody's listening to me. And I was pretty frustrated. Well, the night of that dinner, I wasn't going to go. I thought, I don't want to go there. I've been there, done that. 17 years in a row I've done it. I'm not going to do it this year. And then for some reason, I changed my mind. I said, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to go by myself. Right? They're going to fill the table. And I had no idea which table I had purchased, have no idea. And so I walk in and I bought the table for Channel 2. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, right? And then the lady who was the newsmaker was sitting across from me. So she got up with Angelica Thornton and gave her the award for feeding the homeless out of the back of her building. And she held up the award like that, and she had a big smile on her face. And I thought, wow. I mean, it's all great and it's all wonderful. I'm glad that they're doing that because that's a need that needs to be fulfilled too. But it doesn't change anything. And so I looked at Angelica Thornton and I said, have I got a story for you? And we swapped digits and we agreed to meet the following Monday. And I met her at Starbucks, and there happened to be a tent across the street. And when we sat down, and I said, you see that guy in the tent across the street? I said, I was just like that, at the time, 45 years ago. And she said, oh, we're going to do a story about you. And I said, no, we're not doing a story about me. This is not about me. This is about something far bigger than me. It's far more impactful. And so I described to her the bucket fire that you, Bobby, and Beard, and maybe perhaps another one or two people had stood around a bucket fire and came up with this idea, or the idea came to you, I don't know how that works, and said, why don't we help each other? Why don't we create a community that serves one another?
And thus, I think that's what you witnessed and experienced, especially coming that first day to Cultivate, is you saw the, like, when given transformational opportunities, people cannot just survive, but actually thrive.
Thrive, yeah. Because the people that drive up and down this street right over here and they see those tents and they say, these are hopeless, they are, fill in the blank of the opinions that they have about them, right? And that just constricts their lives. Instead, we look at it as in a different way. This is a transformational a platform that can take that life that was given up on, not only by us, meaning us society, and them, they themselves, and they can transform their lives into something that's not only useful, but thrive.
Yeah.
And have light in their eyes, and have purpose, and have dignity. It doesn't matter what they look like, right? It matters only what's in their heart, and that's what this does. It ignites something in their heart and in their mind. So I made a commitment to myself, and ultimately a commitment to you all, that I'm going to do everything I can to not only get this word out, but to demonstrate to the world. This is a unicorn in my mind. This will change the world. The thinking behind it.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah. You touched on this a little bit, but you have not been transactional with us, Greg. You have been literally transformational, and you're coming alongside this group of people, and I'm curious why.
That is a good question. It just fills my heart. It gives me purpose in life. It gives me dignity to be able to do this and to share this story with everybody I meet. I mean, sometimes I say, have I told you the story? Yeah, you've already told me that story. Have I told you the story about? No. Well, if you've got a half hour, I've got it for you. And on my fishing trips here lately, it's been the same thing. That became the subject of conversation by 15 guys. So I think being an instrument of that transformational process is where I want to be. It's what I want to do, and it fills my heart.
Cultivate Initiatives was born out of this, rather than rejecting our neighbors that are on the streets or in a shelter, that what would it look like for housed and unhoused neighbors to come together, to be formed with each other, and you have championed that by bringing literal people that would not normally come together to be together and to smile with each other and to fist bump and to see, like, you live out the values.
Yeah, I want to walk my talk. Main thing is and I find it interesting and compelling about the way I tell the story, because not many people get it, right? And if you recall, we brought that couple up here, and the wife looked at you and said, "This is transformational." And I said, "I've been trying to tell you this, And in fact, when Angelica, when she did the first story that we did back in April of 24, when I saw that, it was good, it was accurate, it depicted, but it didn't quite get the sauce, didn't quite get the foreign width, right? And so I've been texting her all during the course of this last year, to the dinner of this year when you were being honored as the newsmaker of 2024. So I bought the table. The Grand Poobah called me and said, "You're buying the table this year?" And I said, "Well, I'm still on a pension, but I'm still going to buy the table." And he said, "Are you going to fill it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll fill it." And I kept thinking, well, who in the heck am I going to invite? Well, wait a minute. I got it. Just an idea came to me. Why don't I invite Todd and Dahl and Sandra and everybody who's been there? And this might be kind of a treat for them, right? Oh man, that was perfect. And as I watched Angelica sit at that table and virtually interview everybody around that table, and I could see her jaw drop. And afterwards, she came up to me and she said the exact words, "Greg, this is transformational." I said, "I've been trying to tell you this for a year." And she goes, "I want to do a documentary." I said, "I've been telling you for a year we need to do a documentary." And she texted me the next morning and said, "I got permission to do that." And so now, as I understand, she's out filming today.
Yes. So those listening, be on the watch out for a documentary coming soon.
Coming soon in the fall of 2025, and it's going to be fabulous. It's going to be a game changer, not only for us, but for the entire conversation around the unhoused.
Absolutely.
And that it is possible that we can have all of these people that can come off of the street and join those that aren't unhoused and become a community supporting one another. And I'm all for that.
That puts wind in my sails.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to tell our listeners, or some parting words, or anything you'd like to kind of share?
Well, given my personal experience of being unhoused for a couple of years actually, I know what it's like, and it's horrible. And I knew in my heart I didn't want to be there, but I didn't know any other way out. And until I met someone that said, he put his arm around me and said, "Everything's going to be okay, I'll take care of you," right? That's lived with me ever since. And now this is like a brand new opportunity for me to send this message, get this message out, do the footwork. I've been out with the crews, both the shower crews and the cleanup crews, and I was astonished by what I saw. There was no hierarchy of, I'm the boss and you're the worker. No, everybody chipped in when they needed to chip in. It got done.
Yep.
If something needed to be done, it got done. And there were smiles on their faces afterwards. I mean, who can say that they go to work every day and come back with a smile on their face? I mean,
picking up garbage,
picking up garbage,
gnarly things, and to hear our neighbors say, like, I got waved at and said honked at, and that made me feel so good.
Yeah.
And they are so proud to add value to the community.
Yeah, in fact, we on the cleanup crew that day, we got done by 11:30 after the cleaning up this horrible. We unhoused about 140 rats, and Jay was on top of the garbage mess. He said, "I'm not going down there. You guys are going to take care of it from here." That's the only thing I ever saw that was anybody one up, one down. And I asked everybody, I said, "Would you guys like some lunch?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "There's a food court across the street on Sandy." And I said, "Let's go over there." Well, on our way there was a unhoused camp right there. And the lady was standing out there, and whoever said something to her said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And they said, "Well, we're going to get moved if we don't clean up the trash." And she said, it was, I can't remember her name, Nadine. She said, "No, we'll clean it up right now." So we cleaned up her trash so that they didn't get moved that night, right? Then we went over to the food court, and I gave everybody $20 or something. I said, "Go get whatever you want, and we'll meet up at this round table." And so Nadine and I were walking, and I said, "There's a hero sandwich. Let's get a hero sandwich." She goes, "What's that?" I said, "Oh, you're going to love it," right? And so we both did that. We all gathered around this table, and what I noticed first of all is everybody shared something with somebody. Now, have you gone out to lunch with your friends and have anybody come out and say, "Hey, I want you to try this because it's beautiful," right? It touched my heart.
Yeah.
So
that is wow.
Yeah. So I'm in, baby.
Well, Greg, this is not going to be the last of our conversations.
No.
And thanks for being literally foreign with us.
Foreign with you guys.
Thanks for wrapping your arm around us and saying, "Hey, we're going to be okay.
You're going to be okay. Perfect.
Love you, brother.
I love you, brother.
Thank you.
You're welcome. How was that?
If you're inspired by the stories you heard and want to be part of positive change, visit our website, stop by for a tour, or simply say hi to a neighbor. There's always room for you around the fire.